Welcome to the Obvious Podcast, episode number 53. My name is Sonny Macon.
And I'm Peter Dyguth.
And you are listening to the Obvious Podcast, where all opinions reflected are our own, unless we say otherwise, or they could be of somebody else's if we're playing a video clip or something like that.
And we just want to invite you to please check the show notes, subscribe if you want the notifications every Friday when a new episode comes out, and help us with our algorithms and reaching more people. So we hope you'll consider doing that if you haven't already.
Absolutely. Happy Friday, Peter.
Happy Friday to you, Sonny.
As you know, you and I both...
A lot of people's favorite day of the week around here.
I would say my favorite day is any day that ends in a Y, but you know.
Amen.
As you know, you and I are big fans of the Bee, the Babylon Bee, and the satire that they publish. And I saw something very interesting. Well, interesting would probably not be the right word, but I saw something that got my attention. And we're going to put it up on the screen. And it's basically just a picture of Trump. And Trump vows to nationalize as many private companies as it takes to defeat socialism.
Right.
So then I'm like, what are they talking about, right? Like, yeah.
Right.
And look, what I appreciate about the Bee is they will eviscerate the left and the right.
They do.
This with the last administration. And
probably not as often on the right, but I think there's a reason for that. I think it's harder to come up with satirical stuff on the. I don't know.
I agree.
So, and sometimes when they do it, it's pushing it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know. So and I think that's the whole point.
That's the whole point of this.
You know.
So that got me thinking about kind of what companies is he trying to nationalize. So I happen to be watching CNBC morning show. It's called Squawk Box. One of the hosts who's a big time lefty. His name is Andrew Ross Sorkin. By the way, a co-creator of one of the shows that I love called Billions on Showtime. So if you have a chance to check as Showtime, I don't even know if Showtime's still around, but it might be on Paramount. But if you like kind of businessy Wall Street type shows with great drama, check out Billions.
You can always count on the obvious to give you some good movie references and or recommendations.
And some recommendations. So. But, you know, Sorkin is like the New York, elite lefty. And he is very up in arms about the fact that the U.S. Government now has equity in Intel.
Right.
And
as are a lot of leftists.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this beforehand, not because they're opposed to socialism. Because they're not, but they think it's huge hypocrisy, right? And anything that can catch the president or any conservative on hypocrisy, they think it's somehow so. But then, by the way, it's not just. I mean, there are some conservatives that think this is the U.S. Investment, if you will, in Intel is an issue.
It's an issue. So there's a whole part of the right that's. Who was the guy who did Crossfire, the host?
Bill Buckley?
Bill Buckley.
William
Buckley. So the whole William F. Buckley, National Review, they're
the
intellectual purveyors of the right are up in arms about this as well. And they've always been sort of anti-Trump. There was an interesting article from Jonah Goldberg, who was a big National Review guy.
What do they call the new right? There's a word for the new right or the new left or I forget there's a term for it, but anyway.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
But
during a lot of the war conversations, a lot of people talk about.
So not the neocons.
Yeah, the neocons. I think that's it. They're more like the neocon wing of the party. So, so that's
completely fine with foreign intervention, completely fine with wars, completely fine with nation building all across the world.
Right.
And what irritates me the most about the neocons and that whole the intellectual hubris wing of the Republican Party or the right I should say, is they have had zero impact in terms of policy.
Yeah. Right.
I've been reading these guys for 30 years, and they have had no impact other than wasting money and killing American soldiers and all over the world. I can't tell you one good policy.
I think they've been very influential in American politics.
In what sense?
Policy. Well, in promoting, regime change.
Yes, agreed.
Foreign policy, and wars and whatnot. And, I don't know. I might have considered myself for some period until I kind of saw a different way.
And globalization. Let's not forget they were big purveyors of globalization.
Quote unquote free trade.
Free trade.
Which now I think there's some more talk about fair trade, as opposed to free. So I think we're going to get into that a little bit.
We'll get into that.
Capitalism and whatnot. So unfettered capitalism versus...
Well, really one-sided capitalism, right? When you're talking about, this comes up all the time when people talk about, and I hear this from, again, the whole National Review side of the Republican Party, because they hate tariffs.
Yeah.
They hate tariffs. They hate any sort of governmental intervention. Now, don't get me started on 2008. The free market was about to collapse. Like if it had not been for governmental intervention, the system was going to implode, right? Trade literally halted to nothing under COVID. Nothing. It took $15 trillion, and I read this in an economic policy paper. It took $15 trillion in governmental intervention, this is a global number, to get the free trade going again. Because under COVID, now you could argue the fact that it was really government intervention that killed trade as well. So there's a lot of ways to sort of talk about that issue. Like I set the fire, I'm going to put it out. Same thing with 2008. You could also argue that point really well. But there have been moments where the quote unquote free market has frozen and it has taken governmental intervention. So you talk about the CHIPS Act, right? And how there was all this money given out to Intel. And Intel's, if you don't know this, Intel's particularly fascinating. So in preparing for this episode, I did some research, and Intel is really considered the dog of the chip sector, right? Like they ended up really missing the boat when chips went from laptops to mobile. Missed the whole boat, right? They missed the whole thing with gaming.
You're talking Intel, the company.
Intel, the company, yeah. They missed the whole boat on gaming. They missed the whole boat on mobile, and they missed the whole boat on AI. That's why NVIDIA has just become the beast that it has, and Taiwan Semiconductors that owns like 90% of the market, and Intel's nowhere. It's a non-player. So, you know, and it just made me laugh. I was like, leave it to the left to just plow them with billions of dollars and say, hey, go develop chips in America.
Right. Which, by the way, we were talking earlier. It's okay to just give them free money.
Yes.
I mean that's well, and actually, when we say okay, I mean we readily acknowledge, and I think we have to all accept as a premise that they're not really opposed to socialism,
right?
You know, so that's not the real concern or issue.
That's not the real concern. I mean,
maybe the critics on the right, because there are critics, right, with this whole recent Intel thing.
There are,
and independents, quote unquote, so-called independents, and, you know, that, you know, maybe their concern is more this kind of smells of socialism or government ownership of the means of production, you know, so to speak. Is that socialism or communism?
That's communism.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. Well, and that's socialism too, but that isn't. And again, I don't want to have to explain this to Bernie Sanders, but that isn't Western European socialism, which is the government really doesn't control means of production, but it's very much, you know, a heavy tax, heavy benefit society. And that's easy to do if you're 9 million people and you all speak the same language and share the same culture.
So we want to get into a little more detail about the whole Intel thing and this whole criticism, whether it's because of hypocrisy or whether it's actual socialism, whether it's good or bad. You came across a particular interview.
I did,
left-leaning network that had the Commerce Secretary.
Yeah, Howard Lutnick was on there. And the reason we're giving you this whole background is for you to have some sense of like how to filter this information that's being shared. And I really want you to look at the underlying presuppositions of the interviewer, right? And this is the New York Elite.
By the way, did I ever share with you, like, I've always thought if I wasn't doing what I'm doing today, one of the things I would love to do is actually be a teacher or a professor, but I want to specialize in something, and it would be journalism.
Okay.
Because I would love taking students and doing what we're going to do right now, which is playing an interview and picking it apart.
And media critiquing,
And critiquing it. And because I think that's something we're missing. You know, I don't think people logically can think through or reason through arguments very well anymore.
Yes,
so
100%.
So in any event, we're going to do that for you all here.
It's going to be fun. All right, so we're going to take a listen to this.
All right.
Our next guest is going to weigh in on the administration's Intel stake, future deals, the U.S.-China chip war, and so much more. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick joins us this morning. Mr. Secretary, it's great to see you. We want to talk about Intel. I also want to ask your thoughts, by the way, on the Lisa Cook situation. But let's start with Intel, because I think there's a lot of questions in the business community this morning about what the administration's intention is as it relates to buying stakes in other businesses. We just had John Stankey, the CEO of AT&T, on, for example. He's doing a deal with EchoStar around broadband licenses. By the way, those licenses are U.S. licenses. The government, you could argue, subsidizes those things. And of course, the question that we raised was, what do you think about the possibility that the government's going to come and say, hey, we would like a piece of your company, or to buy one through our sovereign wealth fund, or what have you?
I just want to say, I watched an interview with John Stankey, the CEO of AT&T, and he just was like, that's not going to happen, right? This is not how this administration is behaving. Stankey just said that, right? And this idea that the just because the U.S. government regulates bandwidth,
Right.
that they're going to be like,
Or owns.
right?
Right. That somehow that's the danger of the government being too heavy-handed in the industry, right?
Right.
It is comical.
It's
when you consider how many ways the government exerts its influence.
Yeah.
Through its tax policy, through its, anyway, we could go on and on.
Buy one through our sovereign wealth fund. The United States does not have a sovereign wealth fund, right? So just the presupposition of his comment, of his question, what if the U.S. government said we're going to buy your company through our sovereign wealth fund? Well, we don't have one.
Right.
Like we specifically don't have one.
Right.
Like you see it in a lot of countries that are, like in the Middle East, you see them, in
Are
Europe.
you saying this, the journalist is ill-informed? Just because other countries may have something similar to
I
that?
don't think he's ill-informed. I think he's dishonest.
You think he's just plain right dishonest?
I think he's a very smart guy. He knows we don't have a sovereign wealth fund.
So he's just using a lie as a premise to challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the Intel deal was a great example. The Biden administration gave, GAVE, gave Intel, an American company, $11 billion grant in exchange for nothing.
I was going to say, what we get for it?
That's the thing. Just go build chips in America.
Well, socialists and leftists, are masters at bad deals.
Yeah. Right? Because they have such
somehow it's perfectly okay to give them billions of dollars for nothing. Presumably to help them survive.
Well,
although to your point earlier, they were a dog.
Yeah, they've been a dog for a long time.
So, but again, socialists love this.
Yeah.
Socialists love propping up losers.
Yeah.
And losing propositions, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, throwing money at things without demanding some kind of reform or change.
All I can think of is Mamdani's city-owned grocery stores in New York. All right, and what a debacle that would be if that ever happened.
Sure.
And it was a debacle in Kansas City. I just saw a story where they're shutting them down because they're so awful.
To help them build semiconductors in America, which would be a really good thing. But why would you have, talk about corporate welfare. So Donald Trump sits in the room with me and Lip-Bu, the CEO of Intel, and says, come on, we've got to make it fair for America. And we agree. We get 10% of the company, which brilliantly equals.
This is the.
Was that intended?
No, it was a commercial that just popped up.
Perfect. That's good. We're not cutting that out.
Wow.
So, right? Because that's in essence what he's saying, Isn't it funny, though? Seriously, you and I have had, this is why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
We probably, and we ask our listeners and viewers, you probably had conversations, maybe if you're been interested in this topic at all, with people across the spectrum that are expressing a problem with the recent investment, if you will. And I just think to myself, it wasn't an issue when we were giving them billions of dollars in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
When did these conversations ever come up? When did these interviews on MSNBC or, ever come up? When were they ever asking the Biden administration or the Commerce Secretary for the Biden administration, is it socialism that you're giving them billion or propping up a dog or a loser that,
Why
now? Why now? And again, it's all because they think they gotcha. They got a moment to get Trump,
And to this day, they give credit to Obama for saving the auto industry. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was billions. We got paid back. It ended up being a good deal. And you could argue based on a lot of metrics that he did save the auto industry. But nobody was complaining then.
Right, exactly.
Except for the National Review crowd. They were like, oh, this is socialism. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I know Obama took a lot of heat for it. And
did he do that on his own?
Yeah, I don't think it was congressional approval. No? Okay. I could be wrong about that. I don't. particularly remember if Congress approved it or not. But in this case, in the Intel case, the money's been given. There's no real metrics for what the measures of success are for somebody like Intel, which again has really done a terrible job the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
And it used to be like a market. It used to be like almost a brand that people wanted in their laptops. Like if it said Intel inside. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that's how they used to advertise. Like it's got an Intel. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Funny how even three little notes can connote, a product. Talk about branding.
Yeah, exactly. So all right.
We need to do a future podcast on branding.
Yeah, those should absolutely. Yeah. We'll do one, and on CEOs who hate their brands. So
love it.
Keep an eye out for that one. That should be interesting.
So we were giving money away before.
Yes.
But now getting actually something in return, right, or part ownership is somehow problematic. And by the way, there's an in-between, which in the conversations I've had with people, in particular, it bothers me because it doesn't bother me to the left, because their motives are just a gotcha.
Yeah.
And they think it's hypocrisy. But when people on the right start to criticize this is socialism, so okay, I want to think about that. I want to scratch my head and think about it. And I've thought about this in between. So like every state and the federal government have pension programs. And they invest those pension assets in stocks.
Yep.
So we have been, I'm trying to figure out the difference. How is it that government ownership of corporations through investing in their stocks and their pension funds is any different? I'll be willing to bet you government owns a lot more than 10% in their federal pension or state pensions in a lot of U.S. businesses.
That's true.
So how is that any different? That's my question. And I'm not sure, whether
well,
is there a significant difference?
Not really, because, let me just compare it to the 10% point, right? The 10% point is it's 10%. I don't even think 10% gets you a board seat on Intel, right? So you're talking about a publicly traded company, and essentially what this administration has done is it's securitized an $11 billion investment. And somehow they're getting heat for it because that's some sort of a philosophical no-no.
Right.
When we've done this sort of thing for a long, the U.S. government has done, and not just U.S. government, global governments have done this sort of thing for a long time. And nobody sits there, especially on the left side of it, and sits there and calls it a philosophical tragedy. And then specifically with this issue, with the Intel issue, the heats come from obviously the left, which you'd expect, because no matter what he does, it's going to be attacked.
Sure.
But what I really wanted to address was sort of the philosophical class of the right that has really come down at it, and those are really the people. You talked about their influence. Those are really the people that I blame for the complete hollowing out of the American middle class, and how they have really played such a critical role in this massive wealth gap that exists in this country. Just the way people's lives, what they call flyover country, right? Sort of between LA and New York. And flyover country, they have affected people's lives so negatively with their economic, and I'm talking about the right now, with their economic and their trade policies. And how, 30 years of globalization.
That's a pretty damning, accusation.
But I think data proves it, and I have some data that we'll share with our audience.
So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Those of you who say that we're just biased and one-sided.
No.
So you're basically accusing part of the right. Of being the real.
The real causes of the destruction of the American middle class. And I think I have plenty of data that can prove that to be correct.
The irony, though, of this whole thing, I mean, the more I think about it, and I'm still, as new stuff comes out in terms of people's opinion in the media, but, this is I don't know, it's a pretty solid business decision, it seems like to me, and a solid pro-capitalist decision to me, to actually get something in return for an investment.
Of course, absolutely.
I mean, it's so... A lot of what we talk about here on The Obvious is a couple things. One, and I've mentioned it many times, about how the left and some of their famous thought leaders and thinkers, talk about how what you need to do is blame your opponents for what you're doing, So this kind of fits into that category for me a little bit. But then the other thing is changing definitions and changing the language. So, to me, the reason I bring that up is because, so now actually trying to get an investment and a return for something is socialism. Because
on both the left and the right, or the intellectual right.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, but I do want to make one point, and then we'll continue this conversation into our next episode.
Is this our first part tour?
I think it's our first part tour, right, Mr. Producer? I think this is our
first one was a part two too.
Our first episode was.
We don't do them often, but every once in a while. So the 20 minutes.
I do want to make a point. When you see the left show up with money, right? There is this under-guided concept that whoever the recipient is going to turn around and help the left with their politics.
Okay.
Like campaign donations and things like that, right?
Sure.
Like, hey, we're going to take care of you, even though it's with taxpayer-funded money,
including NGOs and
and right. But Trump,
foreign governments and
exactly. I mean, that's why. Why do you think foreign governments have lobbyists?
No, but heaven forbid you should actually ask a U.S. company to.
Right, but then you have this president, this administration, which I think is again very different than anything the parties have produced ever. Either party has produced. This guy isn't out there being like, okay, what are you going to do for him politically? He's like, all right, what are you going to do for the American taxpayer? We gave you $11 billion. What did we get in return?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's fascinating. But anyway, we'll continue this conversation. And
you got a whole week to think about it.
Yeah.
Join us again to further the conversation.
Yes, for part 2.
Anyway.
But thank you for joining us and for enjoying the show. Again, we're available everywhere. YouTube, if you want to watch the video. If you want to listen to us, we're on every platform. If you have any comments or feedback, shoot us an email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com.
And you can always look in the show notes for all the pertinent information. So we really appreciate you, our listeners and viewers, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you.